But we have like a blatant problem right now with the MMA community, that is that we don't know exactly who is the GOAT.
Think about, when you talk about who's the baddest dude in the world, you put two guys in a room and who walks out, Jon Jones walks out of the fucking room every time. No question about
Some
it.
people would say that the GOAT is Khabib Nurmagomedov. When we say Khabib, we enter the big problem. The GOATs of the sport, they are GOATs for different reasons, if you know what I'm saying. People will say Khabib is the GOAT because Khabib, he was undefeated, he dominated everyone he faced. But like when you see his accomplishments, he only had 3 title defenses and he got his title shot from let's be honest, not a good fighter, even at the time. And he didn't fight like any grapplers during his entire title reign.
All these guys, who Chandler, Gagey, Poirier, who these guys all don't have nothing in the ground. I don't know. I think
Dustin Poirier is a black belt. But he is.
It's not like Islam Makhachev, who actually fought wrestlers nowadays, like Arman Tsarukyan, for example. He actually fought like good wrestlers, and Charles Oliveira. He's not a good wrestler, but he's a good grappler. So it's a bigger point for like, in a GOAT debate, but he has a loss, so people will like look at his loss and like automatically put him lower on the GOAT debate when it comes to Khabib. But the other GOATs like Demetrius Johnson and GSP, I'm going to talk about Jon Jones later, they are called the GOATs of the sport because of their accomplishments. DJ, I think he had like 14 title defenses, and GSP had a lot of title defenses, and the losses that he had redeemed them. Not only he redeemed them, some of his losses he actually won again 2 times with finishes. So these two, Demetrius Johnson and GSP, they are GOATs because of their accomplishments. But Khabib is talked about being the GOAT because of his dominant reign and I guess dominant style of fighting. But then we have like cases of the GOAT like Jon Jones, who actually, for a lot of people, like I would say the majority of people who actually like are casual fans, or like even not casual fans, like actually hardcore fans, they will say that Jon Jones is their GOAT. But the thing about Jon Jones,
When you think about what pound for pound really means, Jon Jones beat everybody at light heavyweight, then beat the best heavyweight in the division like it was nothing at a higher weight class. Jon Jones is absolutely positively the pound for pound best fighter in the world, probably the greatest fighter of all time in any sport.
is that first of all, like we cannot use the argument of like bad competition, because he was at the same era as Demetrius Johnson and GSP, and arguably they also didn't have like the top competition during their time, but they were actually like during the time of bad competition, I would say they actually were so much better than the competition that they created these insane title defenses. So I think that's an argument, like being so ahead of your time that you actually can defend your belt like 14-15 times. It is an argument. But the thing about Jon Jones is that he used PDs. If you believe that everyone in the sport is using PDs nowadays and him using PDs is not that big of a deal, he was the one who actually got caught. He didn't get caught a single time. He got caught four times, if I'm not mistaken. You cannot say that the person who got caught 4 times in different time spans, like he's the GOAT, like he's the best of all time, he's the greatest of all time. When he cheated, the guy literally cheated. Like if you want to believe that like all the competition that he faced was using PDs as well, and he was only doing the same as everyone else, these guys didn't get caught on PD tests. We talk about TRT Victor, but like he didn't get caught on the PD tests. Like he stopped using TRT, and after he stopped using, he fucking deflated, but he didn't get caught. Jon Jones, he actually continued using when everyone stopped, and he got caught because of it. And when he stopped getting caught and he actually started facing competition that was exactly his age, not even exactly his age, older guys, but not that old. Like DC was like I think 10 years older, Shogun was like 10 years older, like people who were actually about his age and at their primes. Because a lot of guys that he fought were like people who were on their primes during the Pride era, and the Pride era was like thousands of years ago. He was like 24, 25, using drugs, fighting these old ass like guys who are half of his size. And when he actually started fighting like real competition, like people who were the new era, like people of his age, all the magic that he was doing to Lyoto Machida, to Shogun Rua, it disappeared, and he actually started like to lose the fights. And we had this narrative of like, no, he's not trying anymore, oh he's bored. But like how
I didn't think so. I thought Jon Jones, he allowed that fight to go the distance when really it didn't need to.
One thing is Amanda Nunes beating the living shit out of every single opponent that is put in front of her, and at some time she actually gets bored. Like she actually doesn't want to do this anymore because she's beating the opponent so bad that it doesn't make sense for her to do it anymore, because every single opponent that they put in front of her is not even a real competition. Like she's beating everyone. The only thing that would make sense for her is to make a super fight. Jon Jones was not going through that. DC beat the living shit out of him in the first fight. It was a close fight. He won the fight, but he beat the living shit out of him in the close fight. He was on PEDs during this fight, by the way. But DC old ass, like 40, 38, 39, I don't even remember, beat his ass during the first fight. So it's not even an excuse of like he was so dominant that like he got bored. No, he was getting his ass beat during those fights. During those fights that he actually fought, he was getting his ass handed to himself. The Gustafsson fight, the first one, the second one he dominated, but the first one he got his ass beat. The second, the Reyes fight, he arguably lost the fight. The Anthony Smith fight was a boring ass fight. He didn't do anything during the fight. So you can say the guy was like not motivated because he was dominating the division. The whole competition simply just stepped up and he got to his level. He left the light heavyweight division just in time for him to not get the newer talent. There was Hiri Prohaska, Alexander Hakic, not Jan Blachowicz, but we saw that Jan Blachowicz actually stepped up a lot on his game after he lost, I think, to Gustafsson. He lost to Gustafsson, and then he stepped up a lot in his game, dominating Reyes to the Reyes lost to Jon Jones. And we saw like a lot of other guys who are insanely skilled now in the light heavyweight division, like Jamahal Hill, even Alex Pereira. We have Magomed Ankalaev, we have Nikita Krylov, even though he doesn't fight a lot. His last fight was last year maybe. But we had like a insane step up in competition, even so insane that the guys that beat the living shit out of Jon Jones and almost won against him are not even like in top 15 conversation anymore because of the step up in competition during this like 4 or 5 years. So the Jon Jones legacy thing is, for me, it doesn't count, you know, because PDs, and when he actually started defending his belt against like actually like competition near his level, he started getting his ass beat. But what I wanted to say actually is about the difference between the Jon Jones GOAT debate and the Khabib.
This is more about Dirty Harry. I don't give a shit about this movie.
Debate, because now we have someone who appeared, Alex Pereira, who is actually, he's doing so much in so little time that people are actually starting to say that he surpassed Khabib's legacy, and that is not like on paper, that is a fact. Like Alex Pereira by far surpassed Khabib's legacy because Khabib only had one belt, like he had one belt in one division, and Pereira already had 2 belts and 3 defenses on his second belt in 5 months. He actually surpassed Ronda Rousey record on that one. So legacy wise, the guy is way above Khabib, who only had 3 defenses. And when he got his belt, before he got his belt, he didn't have a lot of fights which build up his legacy. Alex Pereira actually fought, like before he fought Israel Adesanya, which was his fight for the belt, he actually fought Sean Strickland, who was the middleweight champion, and some people believe even that Sean Strickland won against Dricus du Plessis. So his wins, Alex Pereira wins, are insane. Like he fought literally the best competition in two weight divisions, and he's won. He lost one time to Israel Adesanya, but and that's an argument that people use to like say that he's not on Khabib's level because he lost one time in the UFC and it was a KO loss, so it was a pretty bad loss. But that's when the argument kind of doesn't not make sense. Because you're saying that Khabib is the GOAT because he was undeniable, he was dominant, and his style and things like that. But the thing is, Khabib never, ever in his life fought an actual wrestler. He fought Gleison Tibau, which he arguably lost that fight. People who never saw that fight, I actually saw the fight, and he arguably lost that fight. So the only wrestler grappler, like actually grappler with a good wrestling that he fought, he arguably lost the fight. So like, and people say that he's the GOAT because of his time and shit like that. And people will say that Alex is not the GOAT because he's a kickboxer who didn't test his grappling. But here's the thing, when we are analyzing Jon Jones and Demetrius, we're analyzing only his legacy. When we're analyzing Khabib, we're analyzing his dominance. He never lost a round, he never lost. But when we're analyzing Pereira, we stop all the legacy and how he has beaten the guys, because Pereira is not like only beating the guys, he's knocking out. He literally knocked out every single opponent ever since he won his belt. He didn't knock out Jan Blachowicz, but he knocked out Hiri 2 times. He knocked out Jamahal Hill. He knocked out Khalil Rountree now, and he knocked out Israel Adesanya, and he knocked out Sean Strickland. So he literally knocked out every single champion that he faced, most of them before the 3rd round. So the guy is literally knocking out every single champion in more dominant fashion than Khabib, I would say, during his fights, because he's literally knocking the fuck out of the champions. Khabib was facing guys that they can wrestle, But Justin Gaethje cannot grapple. We know that. That was literally the argument during the Charles and Justin Gaethje fight, that Charles is not going to be able to take him down because he's a good wrestler, but he's not a good grappler. So if you take him down, he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing the ground, so it's easy to finish him. And Dustin Poirier is a striker. Like, he's not known. We make the guillotine jump into guillotine jokes, but he's not known because of his fucking submission game. Okay, he's known for his hands. He's been knocking people the fuck out since the beginning, and that's what he's known for. So why, when people analyze Khabib's legacy, they do not take into consideration that the fact that all his fights were against strikers. He didn't face a single wrestler during his whole life in the game. Not a actual wrestler. Like, when I'm saying wrestler, I'm not saying like a guy who has a black belt in jiu-jitsu like Dustin Poirier, who...
Dustin Poirier is a black belt. But he is. He is a Brazilian Grammy roll.
Black belt? Who gives him? We have to check that, man.
who will never take you down. I'm talking about like a guy like Charles Oliveira, like Islam Makhachev, for example, Arman Tsarukyan, even like division above, like Belal Muhammad, even Mateus Gamrot, like guys who actually like try to put you down and finish you, or actually trying to grind you, like Khabib did. Like, imagine if, like, for example, Khabib like fought like a Arman Tsarukyan, or like even a Islam Makhachev or Charles Oliveira. It would be a completely different discussion, because if he actually won against those guys, like, it would be insanely amazing, because he's finishing guys who are actually like specialists on ground game. But he was not doing that. He was facing strikers, putting them down, grinding them out, which was obviously impressive. But if you ask me, what is more impressive? You shutting down someone's game on the ground because you're like actually making them incapable of punching you, because you're holding their arms or holding their legs, and you're doing like rapid punches, or like sometimes you're doing like some heavy ground and pound, because Khabib actually threw some heavy ground and pound. Or you having a fair, like, let's say a fair match, because when you're on top, when you're on mount, that's not a fair match. Like, you are in the most dominant position in the game. When you're having like a straight up fair one-to-one combat battle, like striking match, and you're dominating everyone, I think the striking is way more like impressive. Even though like, you are better striking on paper, you're giving the guy a kind of a fair chance, because there's no dominant position in striking, like dominant position. Only if you're like beating him into the cage with his back on the cage or some shit like that, when it's striking wise. So I would say like when you dominate someone on striking is way more impressive than when you dominate someone by taking them down and grinding them, like tiring them. Because when the guy is on the ground, he has to think about getting up, he has to actually get up, actually has the effort to get up, because he was put in the bad position, and that's the merit of the grappler for sure. But like when you're already in that position, it's way easier to not lose rounds like Khabib was doing. That's what I'm saying. So how are you gonna say that like the guy is undeniably one of the GOATs when he's doing the safest game possible to win the round? We have Alex Pereira, who's sacrificing rounds against Khalil Humphrey, for example, if you want to believe what he said about the strategy and shit, so he can win and knock him out in later round. That's another level of like confidence in your game. If Alex Pereira was undefeated, I think we would have a different conversation. But I'm 100% sure that like wrestlers like Henry Cejudo, this guy who are insane wrestling fanatics, they would say that people would argue that Alex Pereira should not be pound for pound #1, even if he was undefeated right now, just for the fact that he never grappled someone. He never like fought like a insane grappler.
Alex Pereira, I believe right now, is the pound for pound king. I believe so. You can say what you want, Henry, but I do believe, I think he is the pound for pound king because of the way he's able to fight. Not the way he's able to fight, but the way he's able to make his opponents fight, and the way he's able to dispose of his opponents. I love Islam and his abilities. I think Islam, of course, has more tools in the shed, but for what you have to work with, Alex Pereira, I believe, is a pound for pound.
I get what you're saying, but now to me, it's still not it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we still got to see him against Uncle Live. I think respectfully. Does he fight? Of course. Is he a killer? Of course. But we have to see him against a guy that's more likely going to bring the grappling. I'm not even sure if Uncle Live could bring in the grappling.
But if Khabib was fighting this day and age, he could literally fight only strikers, and people will still put him on pound for pound #1. Islam's case, I think, is kind of different, because Khabib never had any striking ever. But Islam, he actually has pretty sharp striking. His win against Oliveira, he actually knocked him down using the striking and then finished it, which is insanely impressive in my opinion. Not just grinding the guy down, grinding position for 4 rounds and then finishing in the 4th round. I think it's way more impressive when you actually mix the martial arts. When you use a 1-2 combination and then do a takedown, then switch into a guillotine or a rear naked choke. I think that's really impressive. That's what a MMA fighter is supposed to be. My main point with all of this is saying that the GOAT debate is so insanely complicated because of this. We don't have a standard to what is a GOAT. When I analyze these past legends like Demetrius Johnson, GSP, or even Jon Jones, he said he was gonna retire after the Stipe fight. We like to take into consideration their legacy and title defenses. But when we analyze these guys from now on, nowadays, we like to analyze their styles and how they match. Like Khabib, today's case, Pereira, who is not in the GOAT conversation just because not even that he cannot wrestle. He didn't need to use his wrestle a lot, even though he actually wrestled a lot during the young fight and defending all the submission attempts during the first round. I think we gotta, for the GOAT debate to actually make sense, we gotta establish what we are debating. The guy who is the perfect fighter, the guy who is undeniably the best fighter, like who has the best style to be the greatest of all time, or we are debating who is the most accomplished fighter of all time, because I think these are two different things. You can be the greatest of all time in terms of title defenses, amount of performances and things like that, but you can be not the greatest of all time in terms of being the best fighter that the UFC ever had. That makes sense. You can be the greatest of all time, but you still could lose in theory if the guy from another division was in your division, because this guy, for example, his game is complete, perfect striking, perfect wrestling, perfect grappling. So we gotta actually know what we're talking about when we talk about GOAT. We talk about accomplishments, we talk about skill set. I think that's something that we need to establish for the debate to go forward.
Right now, even I don't wanna talk about this shit.